back to my channel. Welcome back to my I'm joking. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ife. You guys will call me Dr. A. Don't call me that, call me Ife. But yeah, I'm a general surgery resident in Canada, and I'm pretty sure I'm the first Black woman on my program, which is crazy. Like the first Canadian medical graduate who is a Black woman to be trained at this particular program, which is wild. Anyway, but yeah, welcome to my channel. We talk about faith here, faith in medicine, so just faith in medicine and everything in between. It's been a while since I've hopped on here because life has been so busy and so hectic. The last video I posted was about like my math story, which was kind of like a rough, I didn't even think I edited. I barely edited it. I just wanted to get it out there. And I feel like I maybe didn't do this story justice, but I have a grad party coming up in about 2 weeks, and I will fully give, I'll give a fuller story and a fuller context as to match day and this is my whole medical journey. It's a whole story. But in this video, I just wanted to talk about how God calls you to things, and things being, it could be relationships, it could be a marriage, vocations, jobs, and even cities, and even groups of people, where if not for Him, you would not be able to handle, you would not be able to steward in your own strength. Okay? And that for me in my life has been multiple things, but particularly my medical journey. And I want to start off by talking about this subject, by talking about Moses. Okay, and his story starts in Exodus. So essentially, backstory: the Israelites were just growing and multiplying. Okay, and at this point in time, for context, Joseph was the previous king of Egypt. Okay, he, the whole testimony about that man and his life. But essentially, he eventually got to a place where he was, next, literally right hand to the Pharaoh, and was doing all the things, doing all over the people. But at the point that Moses was born, generations had passed, and it got to the point where the new Pharaoh didn't remember who Joseph was, and obviously there was no favor towards the Hebrews. So around this time, he was noticing that the Israelites were being fruitful and were multiplying, period, as God's chosen people. And he was like, I don't like this. We need to suppress the masses, essentially. And so he was like, midwives, and the midwives are Hebrew also, you Hebrew midwives. When you see a woman giving birth to a son, a Hebrew woman giving birth to a son, you got to kill that son, okay? But these Hebrew women, they feared God, okay? They feared God. And they were like, we're not doing that. And I think that also brings into, that brings into highlights just how important it is that we always need to have the fear of God before the fear of man. That's something that I'm working on, because even now, I still have this underlying fear of man, and it just it makes me so angry, because there have been multiple opportunities where I could just have boldly claimed hey guys, I'm a Christian, I listen to gospel worship music because that gets me going. But I haven't, and I didn't, and it's just making me think to myself, Eva, God put you where you are knowing that you are who you are. He knows that you like gospel music, he knows that you like worship music, and it is God who put you where you are. It's not the men you're around or the people that you're around who put you where you are, right? So why are you afraid to loudly and boldly proclaim your faith in a space that God has put you? It's not just something for me to think about. Anyway, I'm just staring into the distance thinking about my life and my choices, but this is not the point. So The Pharaoh then came to the Hebrew midwives and was like, okay, the sons are living. What's going on? And they were like, yeah, these Hebrew women, they're so resilient. By the time we get there to like, help them give birth, they've already like popped out their child, like their sons, essentially. And God bless those women, by the way. And then the Pharaoh was like, okay, well, any sons that you see, you need to throw them into the river, okay, from now on. So anyway, there was a woman and a man of Hebrew descent, from the clan or tribe of Levi, and they fell in love. They had a child, and the child was Moses. He was not named Moses at this point, and his mom tried to hide him for 3 months because she was like, I don't want him to die. But essentially, he was growing to a space and to an age where she could not hide him anymore. So she basically she put him in a little basket and led him down the river, and she asked his sister to follow him to make sure that he lands safely. And so, as God would have it, on his path down the river, Pharaoh's daughter and her posse come by, and they see this beautiful baby. And the Bible mentions that Moses was beautiful, or that this baby was beautiful. And the Pharaoh's daughter saw him, and she took pity on him. She's like, oh, this is a Hebrew child, he must be on his way to his death, essentially. And she took empathy on him. And the daughter, his sister, so smart, Moses' sister, he was not called Moses at the time, she goes to her and she's like, actually, there's a Hebrew nurse, her mom, who can nurse the child for you, if that so pleases you, and the daughter of Pharaoh agrees. And then she calls the baby Moses because she brought him out of the water. And I've just been like, I think it's been a year that God has been speaking to me about the importance and the significance of names. There's no name associated with a person in the Bible that is a name just to be named. Even the people who without names, like the woman with the issue of blood, for example, there is a reason why she was not given a name. Okay. So anyway, back to what I'm trying to say is, it's just interesting that Moses was called Moses because he was brought from the water. And it's just interesting because he brings the Israelites through the water, through the parting of the Red Sea. Anyway, I just think that it's a important symbolism that his name was associated with water, and through water, one of the most known miracles that was performed by God through Moses was through water as well. So anyway, that's just something that I'm thinking of and processing myself. So anyway, Moses becomes truly an advocate for the people, but somewhat misguidedly, because he ends up killing somebody on behalf of Hebrews. And as you know, God doesn't love when we kill other people. He hates it. Don't kill others. Anyway, so he ends up running away because he gets caught, essentially, and I think he's gone for 40 years. And then at the end of those 40 years, he comes by a burning bush. And instead of just walking by and being because he notices that the bush is burned, the bush is on fire, but the bush itself isn't burning. So he's just that's interesting. Let me go and take a further look. Which is another learning point, because I think how many times do we see something unusual or I don't know, maybe supernatural even, and we just walk by it instead of taking the time to actually seek out the matter. And it brings to mind this verse that it is the glory of God to conceal the matter and the glory of kings to seek it out. I always think about that verse, because I think a lot of the times we're God, if this was from God, it would be clear from the jump. And sometimes God will give you a little for you to investigate a bit further and then be oh my gosh, Lord, that is you, And so that was the case with Moses. He stopped and he was what is this thing? And when he stopped, God called out to him and said, Moses. And basically told him that he was going to have to lead his people out of Egypt, lead the Israelites out of Egypt. And Moses is bro, are you sure I'm the right person for this? Because I don't know how to publicly speak. Why would they listen to him? Why would the Israelites listen to me? Especially just knowing his history, bro. He's a murderer. Oh, he murdered somebody. I'm not going to label him as a murderer, but he had murdered somebody. And I mean, God gave him Aaron to speak on his behalf and all those things, but like Moses, like from just by himself, would not have been able to lead the Israelites by himself. And honestly, when Moses asked God that question, like, why me? Like look at me, like why? Like, I don't have the skills, I don't have the gifts. God was not bothered, bro. He didn't blink his eyes twice and think, you're actually right. Let me rethink this. He was like, no, I chose you for a reason. And I think, and one of the sermons I watched that really resonated with me is just like, the reason why God wasn't stirred by Moses not being like, by himself, not being the guy to be able to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, was because God knew that he wasn't relying on, it wasn't out of Moses' strength or Moses' abilities that the Israelites would be led out of Egypt, that it would be from God's abilities, God's strength, God's resources, that the Israelites would be led out of Egypt. So it really, like, it could have been Moses, it could have been somebody else, it could have been some other random human being who loved Jesus. Right, I'm gonna be like, loved and honored God because Jesus didn't exist at the time. But he just really needed someone to be obedient, bro. And he could tell that Moses had a heart after God and after God's people. So that's also a big thing as well. Yeah, and like honestly, like even like again, misguided as it was, like he had always had a heart for God's people. And I think it's just interesting because from Moses' perspective, like now that I'm like thinking about this and going through this in my head, like from Moses' perspective, like he couldn't see what God saw in him that made him like the right choice for God to use to bring about the delivery of the Israelites from Egypt. Because he was like, I can't speak, I can't do these things. But I think it's just interesting because he wasn't looking at the right quality that God was seeing. Like God could see, like God saw that this man has a heart for my people, this man has a heart for me. But Moses was looking at the fact that like he couldn't speak publicly. He's like, and God's like, again, don't worry about this. Like I'm going to bring about my glory through my means, and not like it won't be dependent on you. It's always going to be dependent on me. And I think just as Christians, especially like myself, if you find yourself like myself, who get caught up in not having the right like skills or technique or connections or money and whatever it is to do what you feel like God has called you to do, God knitted you in your mother's womb. Like God knew you before you were in your mother's womb. Like God knew you before you were put together, like your body was put together. So who are we to question God when he calls us to do something that we cannot understand why, when we, with limited view, know who we are? So it's actually so beautiful because I think we really do think that we know who we are. We really do think we know like our capacities and our abilities, our strengths and our weaknesses. And I think sometimes we think that we know even more than God, but God knows not just who we are, but who we were always meant to be when he sends us out into this world. Right? So anyway, guys, as I'm talking about the story, I'm realizing there's just so many nuggets like in the story of Moses that I am just like taking away for myself, and I'm just learning, But anyway, guys, so that's the point of the story that I'm trying to emphasize. So coming back to whatever God has called you to, again, it could be like your marriage, it could be your career, it could be like the city you're in, it could be the church that you're in. Like, sometimes God will give us these like blessings, beautiful, beautiful blessings. And we realize soon that we cannot handle these blessings without being persistently or inquiring consistently of the Lord, and spending consistent time in his presence. Because I found out very quickly that, I was trying to do things from my own understanding. I was trying to navigate the surgical space from my own understanding. And I still, God forgive me, I still try to do it from my own understanding a lot of the times. And it burns me out. And it just brings to mind the importance of seeking God first and foremost in everything, and truly all his righteousness will follow. Because the peace that comes with pursuing God and being like, God, you know what, I don't know how to do this thing, like I don't know how to navigate this situation, like please bring me the resources, please bring me the understanding, please bring me the wisdom, please bring me, you know, the skill set that I need, at least like give me the tools or the resources that I need to build the skill set to do this job. He will bring it, bro. And like sometimes like you don't even know what to ask for, and he will bring it, and you're just there like, oh, thank you, Jesus. And it will just blow your mind in so many ways, and my mind has been blown in the same way. And just also the favor that you receive in the space that God has placed you. You just be wondering to yourself, like, why me? And it's not about you, bro. It's truly about the glory that God will get through you surrendering your life to him and being obedient to what he has called you to do. Anyway, so I say all of this to say that if it was just left to me, I would not make it through these next 5 years. But because God has gone before me and he walks beside me every day, I have full faith and full confidence that I'm going to be an excellent surgeon. Okay? And if you are feeling like, oh my goodness, like what God has called me to is just too much for me to bear, it just like it's crushing, it's painful, then you need to take a moment to think to yourself, like, are you trying to do this in your own strength, or are you seeking God out first and foremost and trusting him to help you navigate whatever it is that you're trying to steward? Because you'll find that oftentimes when you're in that space of feeling like, hey, this is too much for me to bear, it's because you're trying to bear the weight on your own, you know. And like, and you look back at it, I know this was the case for me, you might see that like you haven't been like spending time in prayer like somewhat consistently, like you haven't been in your word intentionally, like you haven't been spending time in God's presence consistently. And you know, it happens, like life gets busy, especially in this current world that we live in. Like it's just hustle. But it's so important that we remember to actually spend time with God every day. So anyway, guys, that's kind of my I want to say testimony. It's my testimony, but that's currently where I am right now, and how I've kind of started this surgery journey is just realizing that like I cannot do this in my own strength, that I don't want to do this in my own strength, because this is truly God's doing. And he who started this work in me will be the one to carry it to completion. And there's a verse that says, I think it's in Hebrews, I think. It could also be in Galatians. But basically, it says that what is started in the spirit cannot be finished or completed in the flesh. In other words, what God has started, we cannot hope to complete by our own strength. We have to continue to lean on God's provision to carry whatever that task is through to the end. Okay? So anyway, that's it. That's me. And yeah, I think in the next video, I'm just going to speak more on how I went about like choosing general surgery. Obviously, God is going to be mentioned in it, but I think what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try to bring like the practical steps, because I know obviously not everyone who follows me on here like knows Jesus and or has a relationship with Jesus. And so I will break it down in a way that like it's like, okay, practically, how can I go about doing this? But I also implore you to develop a relationship with Jesus. Because truly there's just so much peace here, guys. Like, I don't even know what to say. I'm just like, yeah, I'm not out here trying to like persuade anyone to shift from their faith to my faith. But all I can do is tell you about my story, and my story cannot be told without telling you about how my life has been changed through having a relationship with Jesus Christ. So anyway, guys, it was so nice chatting with everybody, and I'll see you next time.